Hello, bonjour, 你好，Anio, hola，我是你的 boy CP。Hello，say hello。Get that garbage out of here.
What's good everybody, this is CP and welcome back to my NBA Fantasy series. If this is your first time here, be sure to check out my entire fantasy playlist with the links below. Today I'll be deep diving into a few more head-to-head categories, including points, assists, field goal percentage, and 3 points made. I'll predict the top fantasy players in each category and highlight a few underrated players you might want to target during your season. So without further ado, let's get it. If we take a look at the stats from last year, James Harden led the league in scoring, averaging 30 points a game, with Victor Oladipo and LaMarcus Aldridge rounding out the top 10. Overall, points is a category that is very hard to replace, especially if you missed out on drafting high-scoring players. Only a total of 23 players averaged 20 points or more last season. So if you want to make up for your lack of scoring, a good way to improve your team might be to pick up or trade for players that have potential to significantly improve their scoring this year. Aside from household names like LeBron, Giannis, and KD, history has shown that every year around 2 to 3 new players break into the top 10. If I had to choose 2 names who can do that this year, it would be Kemba Walker and Nikola Jokic. Walker is in his contract year and is almost single-handedly carrying the Hornets right now, so I can see him averaging 25 points a game for the first time in his career. Meanwhile, a player like Jokic looks like he is ready to take a huge step forward and become one of the most dominant big men in the NBA, so he can very likely average 20 to 25 points a night. Aside from those two, I think a player like Kawhi Leonard has a great chance to bounce back into the top 10 as well. It is still early, but he's already playing like a top 5 player like he was a couple years ago in San Antonio. I could see players like Bradley Beal and Donovan Mitchell put up new career highs in points this year, and if they can remain consistent, they are my dark horse picks to crack the top 15 or even top 10 in scoring this year. In my opinion, the biggest risers will be Zach LaVine, Tobias Harris, and Gary Harris. I think all of these players are poised to set new career highs in points and should be keeper candidates in keeper and dynasty leagues. In deeper leagues, adding a player like TJ Warren, Cedi Osman, Danilo Gallinari, and Jordan Clarkson could be a huge difference, as they might be able to give you an extra 15 to 20 points per game and help you squeak by your opponents during close weeks. If we take a look at the stats from last year, only 11 players averaged 6.5 assists or more per game, with LeBron, Westbrook, and Harden rounding out the top 3. But this year, I think a player like Ben Simmons could steal a spot in the top 3 by the end of the season. Some non-flashy names who can potentially give you elite numbers in assists includes JJ Barea, Jeff Teague, and Rajon Rondo. Meanwhile, younger players like De'Aaron Fox, Trae Young, and D'Angelo Russell have a chance to crack the top 15 as well. Another name I don't think enough people talk about is Elfrid Payton. He won't get you a lot of points and might not be a top 70 fantasy player, but he does have a career average of 6.4 assists, so he can be a sneaky mid-season pickup that can put you over the top in assists and help you win during the playoffs. A few examples of small forwards that can give you decent numbers in assists includes Nicholas Batum, Joe Ingles, and Cedi Osman. All of these players should put up above average numbers in assists for the position and has a good chance to give you around 4 to 5 assists per game. Power forwards and centers who can give you decent assist numbers are even more rare. If you missed out on elite players like Draymond Green or Nikola Jokic, you might want to go after more affordable options in players like James Johnson, Aaron Gordon, and Pau Gasol. On top of that, another name I really like is Luka Doncic. He is eligible to play multiple positions, but he might end up as one of the top power forwards in assists by the end of the season. If Dallas gives him more time to handle the ball, I wouldn't be surprised to see him average around 5 to 6 assists per game to finish his rookie season. As more and more players are capable of hitting threes in today's NBA, you don't need a player like Steph Curry or Klay Thompson on your roster to win the 3-point category every week. In fact, many teams can find success by simply scattering their lineup with a bunch of players who can hit threes. Last year, we saw James Harden lead the league in threes made, along with a few household names like Kyle Lowry, Damian Lillard, and Steph Curry who all finished in the top 10. But it's important to note that some non-flashy players like Wayne Ellington, Joe Ingles, and Eric Gordon also made that list. So simply put, elite 3-point shooters doesn't necessarily have to be NBA All-Stars. If I had to choose, my top 3 picks for most 3-pointers made this year would be Steph Curry, Kemba Walker, and Damian Lillard. A few young players like Tim Hardaway Jr., Zach LaVine, and D'Angelo Russell might be solid trade targets for up-and-coming players as well, as they all have a chance to crack the top 10 this year. My pick for bounce-back player of the year is Wes Matthews of the Dallas Mavericks. He seems to have found his touch again and is benefiting from playing alongside wonderful young players playmakers in Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr. Meanwhile, my list of underrated 3-point shooters includes Josh Hart, Joe Harris, CJ Miles, Josh Richardson, and Wayne Ellington. I think all of these players are capable of giving you an extra 8 to 10 threes every week to help you win that category. If you want to target big men and forwards who can strike from distance, some of the more underrated names may include Nikola Mirotic, Marcus Morris, Anthony Tolliver, Robert Covington, and Taurean Prince. And for rookies, you can't go wrong with a guy like Trae Young, especially if you can live with his cold shooting streaks. But I also like a player like Luka Doncic, who is also a very decent spot-up shooter. And in deeper leagues, a rookie like Miles Bridges might be able to do some damage if he is able to get consistent playing time. Field goal percentage is a stat that is mostly dominated by big men. If we take a look at the stats from last season, every player that finished in the top 10 were either centers or power forwards, which does kind of make sense considering that they are more likely to get dunks and easy looks around the basket. As a result, players like DeAndre Jordan, Clint Capella, and Steven Adams are pretty safe picks to be at the top of the list by the end of the season. Some underrated players that could also help you in this category includes Montrezl Harrell, Taj Gibson, Julius Randle, and Domantas Sabonis. Underrated small forwards and guards who can give you decent field goal percentage might include TJ Warren, Joe Harris, Eton Moore, Gary Harris, and Darren Collinson. And my top 2 picks for rookies includes DeAndre Ayton and Marvin Bagley. So that's a look at some of the top and more underrated players that could be huge mid-season pickup for your teams this year. Let me know what you think of these picks and feel free to message me any questions related to fantasy basketball. I always love reading your comments and will try my best to help you win this year. And also please show me some love by liking, sharing, and subscribing. That's it for today, and I'll see everybody next time.